welcome everybody to the Tuesday edition of the Daily Cheat Sheet. We're here with the Dude and Golan. There's a lot going on in the news, Golan, and I really have to get to this story because it was a huge story. Everybody commented on this story, and everybody was wrong. And I am extremely disappointed with somebody like Mike Huckabee, who I love, who's been no better friend to Israel. Absolutely none. But this church thing that happened has totally been debunked. It wasn't hit Golan. It was nothing. Israel had to deal with another crappy pope who's anti-Israel, and here we are.
I was watching Michael Knowles, and I've stopped watching Michael Knowles, to be frank, but I, for some reason, decided to put on his show. I think someone maybe sent me a link, and the reason they sent me that link is because it was a clip of him saying, "Israel, you've lost me. I have generally been pretty supportive, but you've lost me. Why did you lose me? Because of what happened with the church." Then he said, "Even if it was by accident, you lost me," which is also ludicrous and speaks to the fact that he is doing his best to pander to his base, who are a lot of the time lately seething anti-Semites. But putting that aside, I'm seeing a lot of people who jumped the gun. It all started with Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee, who we know to be genuinely a champion of Israel. He has been going there since he was a kid. He is inexorably connected to the land. And for him to believe the propaganda that all of us have been fed now for years and years and years, that many people are just swallowing whole cloth, for him to be one of those people was, I don't want to say shocking, I want to say disappointing. He said that the historic church was burned to the ground in Taipei. And then he kind of blew it out of proportion from there, talking about how Christians were treated and all the rest. It turns out, as you mentioned, no structural damage occurred to the church at all. I think we all bought into it because everyone immediately jumped on this story. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle, everyone bought into this. So I don't want to take any one person to task. I want to take everybody to task for this. There was a small brush fire that occurred nearby, a small brush fire that didn't even scorch the church or any of the crops of the church, by the way, in case we want to go all the way into crazy town. It stayed in open land, contrary to all the media hype. Interestingly, both Jewish and Palestinian residents helped fight it. So if anything, this is a story about unity that was turned into yet another cudgel to say bad things about the Jews. Real bummer.
Well said.
I think there's two church stories, if I'm getting this right. There's the Catholic Church in Gaza, which got hit by shrapnel, and 3 people died. And I'm not sure how 3 people died from that shrapnel, but it doesn't seem like there was enough damage to kill anybody. And then there's another story where it was the Church of St. George in Judea and Samaria.
In Taipei.
What's that?
In Taipei. We're talking about that. We're talking about the one in Taipei that people attributed to fire and said that the church had burned to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stone church.
But it's a 5th century church.
It's an ancient church, and it's not burned to the ground. They went there. It's made out of stones. It's not made out of wood, and it was not burned. There was no fire. So that was just a made up story that the media ran away with.
It's not just that the media ran away with it. The White House ran away with it. Again, even with the other church, as you pointed out, it's an extremely overblown story that's made to be dramatic when we've brought up the numbers of how many Christians have been kicked out of that area.
The answer to all of this is return the hostages and surrender. That's the answer. Yes, churches get hit. It's an accident. It's a war zone. Things like that are going to happen. When there's munitions flying over your head, there's always the chance that one of them is going to fall a little prematurely and hit a water station or a church or a food line or something, because it's a goddamn war zone. So the answer is release the hostages and surrender and end the war. Not end the war while there's still hostages there. It just makes no sense. So it shows the double standards of all of these organizations when they call for an end to the war without first saying, release the hostages and surrender.
Absolutely. Whenever they don't mention that, there's an agenda at play. And the reason, I'm mentioning the church and I'm kind of keeping it vague, like you separated them out and you should, because that's reality. But the reason why I'm kind of playing that game is because that's what's happening in the media right now. People are conflating the church in Gaza that was hit by shrapnel and 3 people were killed, sure. And significant damage was done, sure. An accident, of course, it was not something that was deliberately done and it was not a direct hit, despite, I believe, Reuters saying that it was. The Taipei church incident was completely just whole cloth fiction. Yes, but people are conflating the two. And what they're doing now is they're saying there is a consistent pattern in, and this is a quote, Palestine, because they're pretending it's all one place and all one thing, where Israel is destroying churches and going after Catholics and Christians. And they are using what Mike Huckabee said as part of that attack. And that's why it's important for us to point out that one of these is total fiction and the other one was an accident that's been acknowledged by the Israeli government.
Not just that, they're also using Huckabee's thing on the travel visas, which has been alleviated with Huckabee asking for more Christian visas for Christian evangelicals in America. Now, I don't know what happened with that, but I know Israel's been at war. It's not exactly the easiest time to fly in and out of the country right now. And so Huckabee has really been pushing these issues. And I don't think Huckabee realizes the consequences of what he's saying. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because he's been such a great advocate.
Yeah, which is fine, except when did the bottleneck of visas to Christian groups get strangled at the governmental level? When did it start? That started in January. Israel has been at war for several years now, and it was not looking great. By the way, my parents live in Israel. My family, my brother, my cousins all live in Israel. My daughter was born in Israel. I wanted to go there. They wanted to come here, and we couldn't, and we are Israeli and American citizens. This has nothing to do with Christian groups. This has to do with a country at war. And him going nuclear and yelling at Israel and trying to hint at reciprocal visa bans and all of that was an overreaction. Ultimately, we were able to work it out, and I think everything is okay now. We're restoring the old streamlined process. But this felt like something that actually had nothing to do with a Christian group whatsoever.
Okay, man, I want to move on to something I know you're going to enjoy more. And let me preface this by saying the Department of Justice's job, and I will keep repeating this, is not to investigate. Just so people know, they are there to receive evidence. So there's different branches. It could be, I believe, the IRS, obviously the FBI, a few other organizations that they use that brings them evidence. So in regards to Epstein, Pam Bondi keeps on getting blamed, and Kash Patel and Bongino are not taking any blame. They're just staying there silently, and they didn't produce evidence for Pam Bondi. Now, Todd Blanche, who's the assistant at the Department of Justice, is going to hear what Maxwell has to say, man. That's something they have the ability to do. The reason I preface it is because people keep on getting this absolutely wrong. So, Mend, I know you've been a huge advocate for this. So there you go. Todd Blanche is going to be talking to Maxwell to see what she has to bring to the table.
It's a great start. It's exactly what they should be doing. So I think the thing that incensed a lot of people was just this blanket statement that there was nothing there. What are you talking about? There's nothing there. Are you relying on the Obama-Biden era Justice Department and what they looked into? We don't want that. We know that was corrupt as it came. So start an investigation, have somebody look into it, get to the bottom of it, and then release your findings. Bring people to hold them to account, bring them to justice.
And the DOJ, that's not what they're, let's keep them separate like you wanted to with the churches. DOJ can't investigate. All they could do is speak to Maxwell and see what she has to offer.
Yeah, but listen, you have Kash Patel, Bongino, and God knows how many other people at the FBI who could look into this thing. That's what should be going on. They should be looking into it. They should be, it's kind of like what Kash Patel did with everything else. He said, we're going to start at the bottom and we're going to figure out what they've been doing for the last 8 years or 12 years in this organization and find out where all the skeletons are buried and come after these guys. And they did. They found a lot of evidence that Comey buried in back closets and back offices. They found Fauci. They found his old cell phone. They could go through his text messages if it wasn't wiped. I mean, there are things that they are digging up. Do the same thing here. That's it. Say, we're going to look into this. That's the only thing the White House had to say is that we're going to look into this and we're going to release any information and we're going to hold those people to account. We're going to bring them to justice. That's all they had to say. Instead, they came out and said, oh, there's nothing there. It's a conspiracy theory. That's just gaslighting. It's just getting people even more riled up.
I think the bigger problem was where Pam started the process. Can I call her Pam? We're buddies now. So Pam started off by saying, I've got it on my desk. I'm going to review the files. Now, whatever she had on her desk, whether it was the files that she was going to review, which to me makes more sense because I speak English, versus the list, because that's not something you have to review quite as much. Regardless of that, she shouldn't have opened her mouth. She shouldn't have made all these promises. We're going to be doing all of this stuff, because later when she said, oops, there's nothing there, it made her look bad. So the reason why she's catching flack is because of that, is because of her deciding to be the hero going forward. And sometimes in that line of soldiers, when one of them steps forward and the rest of them step back, that person's going to be held accountable. But you're right. She doesn't investigate. That's not how the DOJ works, and the FBI and the DEA and the ATF and all the other ones. They will gather evidence. They'll conduct the interviews. They'll serve the warrants. They do all of that. Her job is actually quite boring. Even though she gets to say stuff into a microphone, her job is oversight. Her job is to take all of that stuff, put it all together into a case once she receives it, and then do something with it. So she's catching flack right now for the lack of investigation, but really what she's catching flack for is opening her mouth.
And also, man, what we're witnessing now is, again, the horseshoe, where people are conflating two cases, right? So Tulsi Gabbard's been investigating, obviously. This just didn't happen in a 3-day period where she was investigating the Obama administration and Comey and all those people that were working there to derail the presidency. And her investigation came to the point her proof was brought out. Now we have people saying, which I knew was going to happen, was, well, they're bringing this up to bury the Epstein case, when the two things have nothing to do with each other. She simply did her due diligence, did her work. Props to Tulsi Gabbard. People are going to also say that she wanted to get back in good with Trump. This has nothing to do with that.
Too.
She simply, again, I knew all those answers were going to come from people, man.
The investigation that they did on Comey and Obama and Clapper and everyone else that was involved in that Russian disinformation campaign initiated by the President of the United States against the President-elect of the United States is nothing short of treason, which is what she called it. So I just hope that they could actually follow this one through and bring charges against everyone involved. I mean, if you talk about a threat to our democracy, which every single Karen in this country has been yelling about for the last 4 years, 8 years, God knows how long. This was a threat to our democracy. This is an actual threat to our democracy. This is the deep state at work. And this is now, she brought the receipts. She's got the evidence that they did this. Now you need to take the next step and hold them accountable and bring them to justice. I hope that happens. I think it'll be very unwell for the country if they don't do that.
Golan, I want you to extend, though, the deep state, which he just brought up, which is, again, the media. You're not seeing this being reported in the media, or if you are, you're seeing places like The Guardian use certain words. It's, once again, she's being trashed.
I read the Daily Beast today, then I had to wash my eyes out. But when I read the Daily Beast today, it was only about how this is politically motivated, how this is just a cover for the Epstein thing, all the things you just said. Went through basically every conspiracy theory you can imagine as to why this is happening now, and did not get into the substantive details of the case at all, or of the report. And look, I will say this isn't the slam dunk of all slam dunks. There is still a lot of work to be done here. And that doesn't mean this isn't legitimate. I think if you read my Truth Social rant about this, you'll see I went pretty hard. I think it's pretty legit. But I also know there's a lot of work ahead of us here, because there are a lot of he said, she said situations within the evidence. Even the 100+ pages that have been declassified, there's already 2,500 pages that were declassified before that through bipartisan investigation. And some of that is contradictory. So we have to sift through it. Let's assume, like men did yesterday, let's assume the best. Let's assume Russia interfered. Not that Trump was involved with that, but that Russia interfered and they wanted to affect the election, and that Obama found out about that and his team found out about that. The difference is that Obama decided to do the worst interpretation of that story for the opposition as possible. And so his ability to then undermine the president-elect and even attempt to stop the transfer of power, the peaceful transfer of power, to me is clear, even if the other facts are in evidence that Russia was involved in election interference. So to me, this still is a slam dunk when you get to the end of the line, but there's a long way to go before we get there.
You know, man, it's interesting. I'm very big into keeping the eye on the prize. And this, to me, Golan says is not a slam dunk, but there sure is a hell of a lot there. And we had a guest on who I love on The World According to Ben Stein when James Comer was investigating Hunter Biden and everything. And I said, it's not going anywhere. You're just wasting your time. And she was like, no, this is, they really got stuff. And I was like, you're wasting your time. And like 9 months later, she's like, okay, you were right. And the problem is right now, we have to keep our eye on the prize. To me, this is the light at the end of the tunnel for everybody that's been persecuted and prosecuted and belittled. Every MAGA person, every American is owed an apology by people being put in jail. And I don't care about anything else, other investigations. I want to see those 51 intel agents disgraced, and I want to see somebody in handcuffs, men. I will not be happy until that happens with this case.
Well, that's what needs to happen. I hope, as I said before, that they see this one through. If they don't, it will happen again. And that's really like when you talk about a threat to our democracy, a threat to our way of life. If these people keep on getting away with it, and the stuff that they did over the last 4 years, from funneling trillions of dollars into these NGOs that were anti-American, anti-Western, democratic, all of it, everything that we stand for is what they were funding. And it's a money laundering scheme. I get it. There's a lot of kickbacks going on there, but underlying all of that is a threat to our way of life. That is what is the net result. So I also just saw a piece this morning where Minnesota Representative Steve Dorowski has all of the receipts, supposedly, from affidavits, eviction notices, marriage certificate, and other documents relating to Ilhan Omar marrying her brother, creating tax fraud, federal fraud, immigration fraud. And that's another case. Same thing. Like, you do not let it slide. I don't know why they wouldn't go after her for this stuff, but it's the exact same thing. If there's crime, if there's fraud, especially by those people that have been deriding us for the last 4 years about how terrible we all are.
For 8 years, 10 years, 15 years. Yeah. I mean, this has been a never-ending onslaught since the beginning of Obama. Remember, this has been going on since 2008, the weaponization. Okay, let's not forget what they did against the Tea Party members with the IRS and every other investigation into the conservative movement. Go on.
I just wanted to say that there are ways, whether it's with what you're talking about, men, with the Ilhan Omar's marriage to her brother, which is still, I can't believe I just said the words, and what Tulsi now found regarding the Obama administration. There are benchmarks that need to be hit. And there's basically 5+1. That's how I look at it. The benchmarks need to be hit in any of these cases. And any of these cases that have this, we should pursue. That means if we can find direct evidence of criminal intent, I believe Tulsi found that. Falsified or manufactured intelligence, I believe Tulsi found that. Proof of misuse of federal power for political gain, I think obviously she found that. Obstruction of justice or perjury, I think she found that. A paper trail, or in this case, an email trail, linking Obama directly to it. And that's the 5. And the +1 is the most important one. It's the one that does not rely on what she finds. It's the willing DOJ. It is the one who has to say, I am strong enough to go forward with this, instead of just doing what has been done over and over again and saying, we know you're guilty, but we're going to move on. If we can have that, those 5+1, then we can actually get things done. Because as Judah said on Truth Social very, very wisely, they are constantly lobbing accusations with no evidence. Maybe it's time that we actually do something, since we actually have some.
So closing up on this, though, I just want to say, to Men's point, he's 100% correct. So he just brought up one case, which is Ilhan Omar, which they have paper trails. We have paper trails with James Comey. I mean, this isn't anything shocking. We know that he released information to his best friend, who then released it to the New York Times, which then led to the Mueller investigation. So we know that to be true, and we know 51 intel agents lied about the laptop. Plain and simple.
And we
Three
know the
things.
Steele dossier was false and used anyway to get FISA warrants and on and on and on and on.
100%. This is like people trying to tell us. I mean, Golan, we have evidence right in front of us. I've never seen something so. Listen, there are people that are charged for far less, Golan. Okay, but let's move on. Mend, I don't know if you saw this story yesterday. Bret Baier interviewed the Iranian foreign minister, who once again, with the talking points, they'll continue to enrich. Yes, their facilities have been knocked down maybe 2 years. But again, this is one of those things. Trump, I think we have 47 days left until Putin has to respond. But this is something that cannot go unchecked. And I get it. People in America think Iran is a different world. It doesn't pertain to America. I bring this back again. We have so many business investments that are helping America coming from that region right now. So it is extremely important that we protect our newish allies in that region.
Yeah, I mean, the Iranians haven't stopped. That's the big takeaway that I got from all of this, is that one is they're still catching ballistic missiles that are being sent to Yemen. They are still catching giant caches of weapons that are being sent.
5 o'clock in the morning last night in Israel, they all were woken up with one of those ballistic missiles.
Yeah. So the Houthis in Yemen are still firing missiles at Israel. The other government, the actual official government from Yemen, intercepted a boat shipment full of weapons that were going to the Houthis. So they confiscated that. The Iranians are vowing to rebuild their nuclear program. They are continuing to advance their ballistic missile program. They test fired a new missile 2 days ago. So these guys haven't learned their lesson. The option is going to be smack them again. They're going to have to get another bomb, a little bomby bomb. If they don't stop their ways, then bombs away. Thank God for the bomb.
I would say bomb them, go on into the Stone Ages, but that's where they live.
That's where they live. Look, I will mend. I appreciate your perspective on this. I think it doesn't go far enough. And usually you're the guy who wants to go further. I think that
he's a little tired. In men's defense, he was at the gym today for 2 hours and 97 minutes. So
But that's why he's 78 years old and looks like he's 22.
True. Very true.
When Bret Baier sat down with this guy, the guy literally said, yeah, we took a hit on our nuclear sites. We did. We're rebuilding. Enrichment will never stop. They said it's science, it's pride. We're never going to give up. And that's the point. They admit strike damage, but it didn't deter them at all. They're vowing to press ahead full speed. So no cessation, no punishing reduction. They're going to build stronger, they say.
When they admit that they took a hit, that makes me very suspicious because they're full of deceit. So if they would say there was no damage, I would say there's a lot of damage. But when they say that they took a hit, they want you to think that they're more damaged than they are. So that's my line of thinking.
And you know what? I'm going to put a cherry on top of what you're just saying, because I happen to agree with you on that, because what happened right after that interview, Russia and Iran kicked off joint naval drills in the Caspian Sea, which is basically like, a big billboard that's like, hey, US, we're against you and we've got each other's backs. Iran's not backing down from this. They're saying we're going to finish what you started, America. And Russia is saying, and look at how tough we are together. That's why it matters, because we bombed their nukes last month, but we didn't dismantle their program. We paused them, as we always do. And this is what I mean by not going far enough. We didn't shut them down. And I don't know exactly what that looks like. I would say that any pause that's temporary just gives Iran enough time and motivation to bolster their ties with Russia, to build their redundancies into place, to spread their nuclear know-how, to get new scientists in place. And basically, it's tech support on steroids. They're going to come back harder and stronger than they did before, as they do every time, these groups. So, in my opinion, if we don't wrap it up, it's just going to happen again and again and again. One bomb isn't going to be enough.
So, Golan, I have a question for you, and I want you to answer this in under a minute, okay? What are drills? People see this all the time, that these different places are doing these different drills. Obviously, we do drills. What exactly are these drills?
Well, the drills can be anything from structured military exercises that are training people, to testing out new weapons, to coordination exercises, readiness checks. It could be any number of things. Look, having been in the military, one of the things that we're always doing is we're preparing. The idea is not to just jump in and then improvise. So any of this stuff is going to be deliberately for preparation. But bad actors like Russia and Iran, and by the way, even good actors sometimes need to use psychological warfare as well. The drills that are public, the drills that are televised, like some of these have been, or where they announce afterwards, we just did a drill. That's to signal strength. That's to tell their adversaries, hey, we're showing off what we're capable of. Are you sure you want to go up against us? And we're stronger than you think we are, and all of that. So when Russia and Iran conduct weapons drills together, they're not practicing. They're showing you there's an alliance there. They're syncing up their tactics, and they're sending signals to the West. And that's why it's important for us to be paying attention to it, because they're letting us know what's coming. And as often as we put our fingers in our ears and ignore it, we cannot do that when it comes to these people.
Well, Golan, your minute and my minute are definitely different. Mend, if you want to finish up on that.
I think when America and Israel hit Iran, they held back a little bit. There were two things that I was surprised that they didn't hit. One was the Iranian oil production fields. So take it out. If you want to cripple them, you want to knock out their funding. I think that they didn't do that because in a counterintuitive move, the Chinese buy all that oil and they didn't want to get, overstep the line with the Chinese, but they should have done it. They should have taken it out. Just one fell swoop. Nobody saw it coming. And then it's done. Then it's over with. Then there's nothing that can be done. Right now, the Chinese are back channeling saying, if this does heat up again, don't you dare touch their oil, right? So they see it coming. They know it's coming. The other thing was there's an MV Bashid. It's a giant cargo ship that the Iranians had out helping the Houthis determine which boats to attack. And this thing has been out there for 3 years. It's a spy ship. Everybody knows what it is and what it does, and they didn't bomb it. I don't understand why they didn't take that thing out.
You see, what you're bringing up, and I just want to finish this off, is Lindsey Graham. I know a lot of conservatives and MAGA hate him, but he's often correct with certain things. Immediately after October 7th, it was his idea to blow up the oil fields and say every time the hostages aren't released, another oil field will get blown up. And I always thought that was one of the best ideas and one of the best strategies Israel could have done, was because that's where the money comes from, to support all these groups. And if you're not willing for hostages now, you lose another oil field. Man, this was just announced, and this goes to your thing. Trump said, whether it is right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Trump said in the Oval Office after referencing newly aired allegations of Obama's role and allegations of Russian interference after Trump won his first term in office, it's criminal at the highest level, the president added, referring to the documents released last week by Tulsi Gabbard. It would be President Obama. He started it, and Joe Biden was there with him, and James Comey was there, and James Clapper. The whole group was there, and John Brennan. Trump added the leader of the gang was President Obama. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you could think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. So, man, going back to his first point, whether this is right or wrong for our democracy, or our republic is how I'm reading it, this needs to be done.
So I think, like much or everything else that we've seen, the difference between Trump's first term and the second term, the first term, he actually was trying to be presidential, and he thought it would be bad and divisive for the country if he went after Hillary. And he learned a lot of lessons from that first term. So I hope this is another one where he learned you can't be that way. You need to be, I wouldn't say vicious, but I would say ruthless in your pursuit of justice. You go after these people that did treasonous things, that destroyed our country, destroyed the fabric of our society, destroyed us as one nation. They divided us, and now we are a divided, broken nation. You go after them. You restore order. You restore confidence in the government. So, and in our Justice Department. So I hope he follows through. I hope this is not just words for the base saying lock her up type stuff. No, actually do it. And I think he will. I think he's learned that lesson.
To Men's point yesterday, which I don't want to go a long way about, we brought this up last week. Romania has purchased the Iron Dome from Israel, and they're purchasing a lot of other things from Israel. And to Men's point, he's probably right. Israel doesn't need the $3.8 billion a year in funding they get. The loan guarantee program is something totally separate. But to your point, Men, you could say the intellectual property that they own over there is worth far more than $3.8 billion. So I just wanted to get back to something Men said yesterday as absolute proof. Golan, there's a couple more things I really want to get to, which is very quickly, which is Trump pulling out of UNESCO, which I think is, again, it's like at this point, what programs are we actually in the United Nations?
Well, Too many. How about that? Right now, we still are actively involved with the United Nations. UNESCO specifically is one that he wants to withdraw from. Well, actually, it'll take a little while until we do it. I think it's effective end of 2026 or something like that. But we're at a place right now where it's just too divisive. It's too woke. It's too anti-Israel. It's too globalist. It's too all of the things that Trump is trying to actually fight against. Everything that they're talking about is diversity and equity, inclusion and gender initiatives and climate. It's all the stuff that we're trying to push back against at the moment to try and make this world a little more even. As Men mentioned yesterday, instead of pointing out everybody's differences and celebrating everybody's differences on a month this and a month that, treat everybody equally. And all they're doing is trying to put everybody into categories. So I think it's a great idea. And I'll tell you what, UNESCO's recognition of Palestine as a member state was, I think, a bridge too far. I think that was one of the steps that basically made him say enough is enough, even though it took until now for him to announce it. So we'll see what happens. People are saying China will fill the gap. People are saying there will be a funding fallout. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think the more we back away from the UN, the better off we are.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So UNESCO has, just like every other UN agency, they are soiled, they are dirty, they are polluted, they are feckless, and they are inefficient. Get rid of them. Every single one of these agencies that started out with like a good idea has just turned into a tool by the masses of hyenas in the United Nations that just seek to suck funds from the US and divert it to all of their pet causes. And most of the time, it's anti-American, anti-West pet causes. So get rid of it. We don't need it. We don't need UNESCO. It is worthless. Look at the statues in Afghanistan that the Taliban blew up. Those were UNESCO heritage sites. They're gone. These cavemen went in there with dynamite and blew up these massive ancient Buddhas. Did UNESCO designation protect it? Did it do anything? No, it did nothing. UNESCO hasn't even correctly categorized holy sites in Israel and in the West Bank or Judea and Samaria.
This is the crux of it, by the way. Do you know why UNESCO was founded after World War II? Specifically, people don't know this, by the way. This is great for our listeners. This is a great piece of information. UNESCO was literally founded after World War II to combat the ignorance and hatred that led to the Holocaust. That was its stated purpose. That was the whole reason for its existence. People don't realize this. And today they are still in charge, theoretically, of Holocaust education, despite the fact they fail to enforce those standards globally. And when countries who are supposed to teach about the Holocaust don't, they've never had any sanctions, never had any repercussions, never had any diplomatic pressure. In addition to that, they've even gone further in the other direction, accepting Palestine as a member state, erasing Jewish history from Jewish sites. As Men was just talking about, the Western Wall and the Temple Mount, according to UNESCO, are named by their Islamic names. They've decided to erase Jewish historical and religious connection to it. And I could go on and on and on, by the way. UNESCO is a corrupt organization whose whole stated purpose, they exist now for the reverse of.
Okay, well said, both of you. Two final things, and we'll get to them very quickly, is Golan Ormond. Columbia University has finally decided to suspend and expel students, which is great news. Another thing that people are not giving the Trump administration any credit for is going after the universities. They are going after the universities really hard, really strong, and really fast, and it is paying dividends.
Too little, too late. Too little, too late. These
You mean
people,
from Columbia, not the Trump administration,
Columbia,
right?
From Columbia. Their students kidnapped Jewish students and employees and locked them in rooms, didn't let them go out, harassed, beat, you name it. That's what their students did, and they're getting suspended on average for 2 years. That's the punishment. Not expelling them, not revoking visas and kicking them out of the country and all of that other stuff. This is their answer. I'm sorry. Too little, too late. Defund Columbia. Like, go after these guys. Hit them in their pocketbook. Hit them where it hurts.
100%. Too little, too late is literally what I had in mind. They didn't take any moral stand. They didn't defend their Jewish students. The fact that they are doing these, like, we'll give you a little slap on the wrist situation is not actually taking care of anything. When a library becomes a war zone And the answer is, we're not going to really expel anybody. It's not that big a deal. And even when they're getting the aggression they're getting from the Trump administration, as they should be, they're still hand waving away the flag waving for Hamas, the physical intimidation, the property destruction. They took people hostage. This thing is ridiculous.
Their students were taken hostage. And had this been any other group, if there was a whole bunch of people in white pointy hats with KKK signs, they would all be in jail. They would be permanently kicked out of that school, all of it. The fact that it wasn't, the fact that the demographics of the people that they were attacking was slightly different, that's the double standard, and it's unacceptable.
That's right. This minority versus that minority. That's not institutional failure. That is pure moral abandonment.
Well said, both of you. Last and final thing. It's one and two things. Go on. This is your expertise, but I find this amazing. Trump just posted on Truth about Kimmel is next. And a couple years back, if you don't remember, not even been that long, but who was it? Somebody at CNN did an interview with Trump. And there was like a mass rebellion of humanizing Trump when they did the town hall with CNN. And all the staff got together and the CEO got fired. And right now, a year and a half, 2 years later, all the late night people are complaining about Stephen Colbert, who's lost $40 million for the company. And they're not going to back down. This is a different time. If you want to
$40 million annually. Continue.
Yeah. But my point is, different time, different place. If you decide right now that you're going to complain and defend this guy, they're all getting the can, God willing.
Look, I will say from an industry perspective, I think there was a very interesting podcast. There's a podcast about the industry called The Town, and they interviewed some people who are involved with late night, and they went through the reasons why this was happening and talked about the economics of it and all the rest. And yes, we are in a world where late night shows are not Johnny Carson anymore. They lose a tremendous amount of money, and every year, as I said. And Colbert was actually one of the weakest, while he was number one in terms of actual viewership on a traditional network, which is a dying industry in and of itself. He had very little footprint when it came to digital. He had very little footprint when it came to YouTube. He was not doing additional things. He wasn't hosting other game shows. He wasn't hosting other talk shows. He wasn't hosting the Oscars. Someone like Kimmel is almost the face of the network over at Disney. When they talk about ABC, he comes out at the upfront. He's hosting the Oscars. He's doing all of that. It's going to be harder for them to kick him to the curb because he is more than just the host of a late night show. So I don't know if it's going to be as easy as knocking over the dominoes. And John Oliver does good numbers for HBO. Jon Stewart might go. There's a lot of money being spent there on Comedy Central, and that's the same group that owns CBS Paramount. Seth Meyers has already lost his band. The numbers have been cut tremendously. By the way, even when the Late Late Show went off the air and was replaced by At Midnight, that halved the budget of what they were spending. And they kept asking them to reduce the budget because there's just no money in it anymore. Everyone who wants that stuff can go on YouTube and watch the clips, which is what they do anyway. And so I think Colbert was the expendable one. And I think it was also politically expedient. And I'm not afraid to say that. I think that's not a bad thing to say that if you are going to be a one-sided political propaganda machine disguising yourself as quote unquote comedy, then you should expect that at some point you're going to be on the chopping block, especially if you are losing that much money on a regular basis.
Well said, our media specialist. Mend, final thoughts if you have any thoughts.
I love it that there's a show that is losing $40 million a year and the guy gets fired, and the only thing that the people, the talking heads on TV could do is say that this is somehow political brown-nosing to Trump when it looks like a clear-cut financial decision by the company. And I wish they would all do that. I wish everything would be merit-based. If you can hold your own, regardless of whatever it is that you're touting, if you could generate revenue for your company, great, do it. Let the market dictate. But if you're being propped up because you're a political shill from one side, it's unhealthy for the country and it's unhealthy for any corporate organization. So cut them all.
And we do know we've seen the opposite of this. Don't forget, Roseanne, when her show was relaunched, shot to number one. It was a super success. People were going crazy for it. It was automatically renewed for a second season. And then she posted something that to my eye, was more vague than anything. But let's say it was a racist rant. We've seen Whoopi Goldberg do that a number of times, and she just gets to have a little slap on the wrist and a talk with the rabbi and then goes right back on the air. But Roseanne lost her entire franchise, despite the fact that it was number one. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah, no, look, Gina Carano as well. I mean, there's a lot of, there's so many
Tim
examples.
Allen as well.
I was just about to say Tim Allen. Everybody forgets he didn't say anything. He's just a conservative.
Correct.
And he had the number one comedy show on ABC, Canned. Okay, we've had enough fun with the late night shows that none of us watch, that apparently nobody watches. That would be like an actual interesting survey for people to walk around going, watch any late night TV? I would imagine 1 out of 10 people say maybe. Oh, the James Gunn thing, but that's neither here nor there. Superman will not make its money back. And so people, when you look at the numbers that they're doing, it's another massive loss for Warner Brothers.
It's great. It's a woke movie. I mean, we actually went to the movies the other day and we saw F1 and it was fantastic. And I encourage everybody to go see it.
Go see F1. The dude liked it and the dude abides. Okay, on that note, I want to thank everybody that's been downloading the podcast, everybody that's been helping us out on Truth. You know who you are. There are a ton of you that have been going above and beyond. That helps us out greatly. Thank you. You could find us on Substack at The Daily Cheat Sheet. You could find us on YouTube at The Daily Cheat Sheet, Instagram at The Daily Cheat Sheet. Of course, you can find us on X at TD Cheat Sheet. And Truth, you can find us at The Daily Cheat Sheet. But also you could follow Golan, who writes essays. Golan writes so much. This is a true story. On Truth, Truth allows you an insane amount, and he can't fit into those characters.
I had double that amount on my last post. It took me 7 edits.
That's great. I want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are, and God bless you all.